adoption. I mean, they were refusing even to allow seriously injured patients to go to Florida for medical treatment. Actually, the dean of the Florida University of Miami Medical School just described this as insane. You know, how can we not bring people here for medical treatment in our terrific facilities when they can't find enough doctors to use hacksaws to cut off their bones? You know? Well, that was the decision. It's been slightly relaxed under pressure, also with adoption. But I mean, there isn't any reason why large numbers of patients shouldn't be brought here just for medical treatment, for care, for recovery. They don't. Most of them want to go back. You know, Haitians don't particularly want to migrate. In fact, we saw that very strikingly back around 1990. There was a substantial, what's called illegal migration in the 1980s, of people fleeing from the U.S.-backed dictatorships, and they were turned back. They were turned back by Carter and then by Reagan with the treaty with the dictators saying, okay, we're going to send you back. They just weren't allowed to come in. In 1990, the flow reversed. There was a brief period after the election, which was a period of hope. And in fact, more patients went to Haiti than came out. Very few came out, I think a couple of dozen. And there was a big return because it looked like there was no hope. Well, U.S. immigration policy changed. During that 7 months of freedom, the U.S. permitted all Haitian refugees, all several dozen of them, to come here because they were fleeing a free, democratic, hopeful government, not a U.S.-backed dictatorship. Then once the military junta took over, the old rules came back, the Carter-Reagan rules, push them back, and they've carried on until the present. It's, you know, the ugliness of this is mind-boggling when you look at it.
All right, one last question, please.
I want to go back to the issue of education, actually, because I realize that there is someone here which has a lot to say, which is Chris Lowe. And that goes back to what you said earlier about the role of small grassroots organizations in trying to recreate the better Haiti. Because what Chris Lowe has been doing for the past 10, how many years, Chris? 15 years in Lagonave, is to run this small school. And so she's the co-director with a Haitian person, Abner Sauveur. And,
well, you're the one that ought to answer that question.
Right, right. So, and what they're doing, actually, is using the national language, Haitian Creole, to teach Haitian kids in this way that's really radically new in Haiti. Not imposing French, not imposing the road system, but letting the kids really learn how to learn by themselves, using the national culture. That's been extremely successful. And one way that's also working with people here is that there is this exchange program between kids here and kids in Haiti, which is both mutually respectful but also mutually benefiting for both kids. And I think I'd like to Chris Lowe to say something about it because she's on the ground there, and I think she can give a better picture of what could be a model for Haiti now, especially because the schools in Port-au-Prince are all destroyed. So there's an exodus going on now of kids from the capital outside, and maybe that's perhaps one small silver lining for education. If schools like Chris's could be used as a model. There is also a school by Yves Desjans in a small place called Fort Royal, outside of Tigouave, that also uses that model. So perhaps those schools might now be sprouting more influence and be used as a model for how Haitian kids should be taught. So maybe Chris, you want to say something?
This is democracy.
Thank you, Noam, for allowing me to speak. Hi, I'm Chris Lowe. I teach in the Cambridge school system here on and off, and also co-direct the Matanois Community Learning Center in Haiti. So you can go to our website. You were looking for donations. We're looking for donations. If you're looking for a place to send them, matanoisclc.org. But we're on the island of La Gonave, and we're trying to be a model school where kids are encouraged to write in Haitian Creole, and I often think that a lot of commentator on Haiti does not recognize the fact that I think it's a country of apartheid through language, because 100% of the people speak Haitian Creole, so it's amazing that all education is in French, which about 5% of the population are French-speaking at home. So you can imagine, when people say, well, why are people, not more educated here? And you think, well, imagine a child who's so wanting to learn something, and, they reach that door, and suddenly they're being spoken to in a language they don't understand, a language that their teacher doesn't fully understand as well, and being hit for wrong answers. They need to memorize their French textbook. And they get kicked out of school for all sorts of things. People can't afford it. So if you can't afford the uniform, or you haven't brought your books because you can't afford to buy them. And then you're kicked out because there's governmental tests that